So, been a little bit. I know in my last video I talked about doing a bit of a debrief. I think we're well beyond the time for that. Obviously been back since the beginning of May. This video I've been trying to make for quite a while. There's probably been about 8 attempts at doing this. It's been trying to just process everything, and 3 months later, what are we in August? We got May, June, July. We're now into August. So I basically had 3 months to decompress from that month in Ukraine. And to be honest, I don't know. Not only just the difficulty kind of just talking about things after the fact, but it seems like weekly I get updates from not only some of the people I still talk to there, but just the news, things to talk about. And again, back to just trying to process this shit and what I experienced, and everything just kind of continually changes. I'll give you one example. So my very first day in Ukraine, I volunteered at a place called Mala Opera House, and it was the last day. We were just finishing up painting around the windows that were replaced, big archway windows, beautiful building. Anyway, back for probably about a month and a half, and I see some pictures pop up on some strikes in Kyiv, and I'm looking at them, and I go, I know that street. And it was kind of a bigger story because it was a ballistic missile hit a mall, and basically the entire mall was a loss. It all burned to the ground after the missile hit. And I was looking at it, and I was like, I know that street, I know that background, and all of a sudden it hit me. I'd had coffee just down the block from there that morning, that first morning in Kyiv, as I waited to go to the Mall Opera House, and realized it's like, oh, it's the Mall Opera House. And so I hit up one of the guys and asked him, and he basically sent a picture because he was already there working. And it's kind of one of those things where, again, it was a bit of a surreal kind of experience, looking at, like, I was seeing a picture of this building that got hit by a missile and knowing exactly where that is, and having this experience of, like, I was down that street, I walked that street, I had breakfast at Lviv croissants right there on the corner, and just kind of a weird thing. So again, just kind of back to why it's taken me so long to make this video, and I'm just trying to process a lot of the questions that people have. For the most part, this video is going to be answering some of those bigger questions, a few of them I should say. One of the big ones that I still struggle with answering, because I do not know how to answer this question, is, how was your trip? The reason I have a hard time answering that question is because it was probably not only this will sound weird, granted, went to a country during wartime and volunteered and did the things I did. It was both one of the greatest and most amazing experiences I've ever had in my life, while simultaneously being some of the worst. So I still really don't know how to answer that question. So generally speaking, because I get that question by essentially everyone, is that was good. I don't know how to answer it. I met amazing people. We did things like when I was with Brave to Rebuild, some of those cultural things. I mean, they were amazing experiences. I seen amazing places, and also just kind of experienced some terrible shit, right? the whole reason of being there, what I thought, what I wanted to do, what I wanted to see and experience was to help out after these strikes, these missile strikes and drone strikes and things like that. I mean, that was kind of the whole reason I wanted to go there was to see it, right? I don't know, that sounds so weird, dark touristy, but I wanted, the idea was not only because I wanted to help and do these things, but at the same time I wanted to see it. The old expression of a picture's 1,000 words, right? And what's a video? 1,000,000 words? Like what is it to see it with your own eyes, right? What does that show you? What does that teach you? These are all things. Again, it's the whole processing thing, and I suppose that kind of leads into the processing. The next question that I've gotten is, am I glad to be back? Again, difficult to answer that question. Am I glad to be back? Am I glad to see my kids? Am I glad to hold my wife? And am I glad to be home? Am I glad to be able to sleep peacefully through the night? Yes, I am. Am I glad to not be there helping anymore? Am I glad to not feel as though the work I do during the day actually matters? No. I think about going back all the time. A lot of situations take me back there. In that sense of trying to continue to help, right? One of the things I did when I got back was, if anybody watching remembers, my niece was wanting to donate about 60 pounds worth of Beanie Babies, right? So when I got back, trying to sort out the logistics of that, how to get that stuff over there and donate them to the one of the organizations that I worked with that dealt a little bit with schools. Again, some of this stuff is probably from previous videos. But when I got home, it was time to figure out how to do this, right? Basically, through any of the commercial carriers, it costs a fortune to send things over there. 60 pounds. You split it into 3 boxes, about 20 pounds a piece. I throw out one of the names here. FedEx. I could buy a car for what FedEx wanted to ship 60 pounds of Beanie Babies to Ukraine. Absolutely ridiculous. UPS wasn't much better. DHL getting a little bit better. All in all, the fix was to send through USPS, the United States Postal Service. I was able to get 60 pounds of Beanie Babies sent to Ukraine for about $600. Substantially cheaper than any of the commercial carriers, which just blew me away, that I could literally take time off work, fly to Poland, catch a train, deliver it myself, come back, fly home, and it would be cheaper if I'd have done it that way than through any of the commercial carriers. Craziness, right? Anyway, so that was one of those things. I had no idea it was going to cost so much money, so it was a little bit of a gut punch. But I told them I was going to do it, so I did it. And the pictures I got back took about a month for the stuff to get through customs and get over there. But the pictures I got back were awesome. So glad got that stuff sent over there. So glad my niece donated those Beanie Babies. That way these kids could get them. So that was a very cool thing. One of the other things is one of the organizations that I worked with extensively, the most, was an organization called Brave to Rebuild. They're currently fundraising for a new van. I donated a pretty good amount there, and I am going to share the link in the description here. Basically what the van will do is, I think the organization has a history of their experiences working on about 300 strikes. They also do, much like rebuilding the house in Hostomel, that I participated with on the one weekend. They do things like that. And then obviously going to the Dnipropetrovsk and working at the orphanage, all of these things, they need transportation. Now what happens is, they have a couple vans, and they're trying to buy a new one and replace one, because obviously if their van isn't functioning, if it isn't working, that limits what they can respond to, whether it's, the van's down in Dnipro, so, there's missile strikes in Kyiv, like how do they get tools and equipment to these sites to be helping people, right? So they're trying to replace their van. So anyway, the link to that will be in the description. They're working their way. Their goal is about $12,000 US. I think they're a little over 2,000 raised. So if anybody is able or willing that's watching this, seriously, dude, click on the link. You can read a little bit about the organization. There's links to their website at the fundraiser page, at the Global Giving website, and their particular fundraiser. And you can follow those links if you want to look up any more information. Fantastic people, both the Ukrainians that man the organization, that run the organization, and all the foreign volunteers that help. Tons of awesome people there. Maybe I'll get to see some of them again someday and get to work with them again. One of the other things, as far as trying to help and assist people, is if you remember some of my videos before about my tutor Nadia and her friend Yasia, who was in training to be a volunteer medic, and I had rounded up a whole bunch of medical supplies for her that I purchased in Kyiv while I was struggling to make connections and things like that, and just figured, screw it, I'm gonna go buy this stuff and just donate it to her. Since then, she has finished her training. Myself and a friend of mine have helped her in the last little bit she needed financially at the end of her training to buy some of her gear and equipment and things of that nature, and talked about all the stuff she had bought, and she had taken some private weapons training courses to learn a bit more about small arms, things like that. These were all things that she had to pay for herself, and we went ahead and sent some funds over there so that she could try and get this stuff done and get some of the last bit of equipment. And she was, they were honest about, like, hey, yeah, there's actually a little bit left over, maybe she'll need something, yada yada yada. It's like, hey, that's fine, whatever she needs, if it comes up, whatever. Well, anyway, she's since been on rotation to the front. She had gone, she is back now. I believe she's rotating out again. She spent about a month, and it was actually nice to hear that that little bit left over that she had, that we had sent her. What she ended up doing is one of the soldiers that they had brought back, who was severely wounded, basically taken the remaining amount of money that we had sent her to help her get situated. She had actually taken that and donated it to him to help with his rehabilitation and stuff like that. So that was a really cool, I guess, thing to see, and to see that, that aid and that support is kind of just continuing to work its way through and to continue to help people. So that's just a really cool feeling, right? On that note, we'll kind of get into a little bit of we'll call this like the show and tell portion, right? So again, talking about Yasia, and I believe I had talked about this previously, I'm not sure actually, but she had wanted to send me a thank you, a gift, whatnot, and it's like, well, I'll be in Petrokivka, and yeah, that's fine. She's really grateful for everything, and she'll send you this package. I said, yeah, okay, that's fine. I don't know how the mail system works, whatever. Turns out it's actually incredibly efficient and super easy for anybody to get a package essentially anywhere in about 24 hours in Ukraine. Nova Pochta is incredible, and how they manage to ship things around that country and do it so efficiently. And again, you don't need a post office box, you don't need nothing, just what town are you in, and it'll show up. Amazing. Anyway, a couple of the things that she had sent me is, I guess first and foremost, she sent me this. This is a patch that represents the Dnipropetrovsk, which is where I was working there at the end with Brave to Rebuild. It is also the oblast in which she's from. So that was a very cool present from her. But the other thing she had sent me, which I had actually talked to Nadia about wanting to find an actual handmade Motanka doll. I'm probably not saying that right. I can't remember how it's spelled. But she sent me these little faceless dolls. They're handmade. It's a traditional protection talisman dating back a few thousand years from what I understand in Ukraine, and they're still very much still made today. I just thought, very cool. Little, I don't know, little gift and a little bit piece of their culture. And so, yeah, thank you, Yasia, for that. It's an amazing gift. I absolutely love it. As far as another piece that I had received, so we'll have to do a little bit of a history lesson here, right quick. In the beginning of the war, there was a little something called the Ghost of Kiev, which the rumor mill within Ukrainian citizens, and the stories about this lone fighter pilot that was protecting Kiev and all this, and he was referred to as the Ghost of Kiev, this nameless hero, that was shooting down Russian MiGs and stuff like that in the early days of the invasion. The government pretty quickly had come out and said, hey, actually, no, that is not one lone pilot, that is a squadron over here. It's the whole unit doing it. Like, it's not just one guy, chill. And basically the whole Ghost of Kiev thing stuck. And then the unit that was basically changed their coat of arms to represent the Ghost of Kiev. Now, the reason why that story is kind of important is because one of the sites that I had worked on, I didn't talk about this at the time, but there was a husband and wife. The wife come down. All she needs is the husband. He's boarding up the windows himself. All he needs is just some help holding the wood up so he can screw it into the frames and get the windows covered up. So yeah, okay. I wasn't doing anything at the time, and honestly, on the site we were winding down a little bit, so it's really no big deal. But yeah, sure, I'll go up. They ask her, hey, is it all right? He doesn't speak Ukrainian. He's American. Is it okay? Yeah, it's fine. So go up there, and the wife spoke enough English to basically exchange names, and that was essentially it. And get upstairs and get to talking to the husband, and the husband knew a bit more English, and my broken Ukrainian and his broken English, we were actually able to have a bit of a conversation about things, and I was able to just muddle through a conversation. And talking to him, and he's showing me out the window, like, yeah, look what the Russian terrorists do to us every day. It's directly out his window on an adjacent building is where the ballistic missile had struck, and so you could see it just clearly from his balcony in his apartment. And we're talking, and he asked me why I'm there, what I'm doing there, and eventually I started talking to him about I'm here in about 2 days or whatever. I'm going to be heading to Dnipropetrovsk, and going to be helping to work on an orphanage and stuff like that. The guy sends his wife off, and she leaves the room. I don't know what was said, and he gets to talking to me, and he starts telling me his whole story, where he's from, where his wife's from. Basically from about 2014 to the start of the Donbass war, and then up through. There was some involvement in the siege of Mariupol with his family, and talking about that stuff. And then he told me that actually I believe he was retired, but he had some involvement with the aviation brigade that was turned into the Ghosts of Kiev. his wife come back in, and he hands me, which I don't actually have it on me now, it's on a shelf at home, but he hands me what I believe would be referred to as a challenge coin. On one side it has the Ukrainian Air Force like crest. On the back side it has like a little image of a fighter jet and a fighter pilot that says Ghost of Kyiv on it. And then he also gave me a unit patch for the Ghost of Kyiv. So that was a pretty awesome experience to talk to that guy, get that kind of appreciation, and again from like Yasia and from this gentleman here. Very cool, and to be able to bring these things home, yeah, that was an awesome thing. Oh boy, I'll get into a little bit of the heavier stuff here. So again, back to just processing, right? And trying to put all my experiences together. And I don't know if I'm supposed to understand what any of it means, but leaving Kyiv and getting to Poland, I remember getting to Poland and having this pretty overwhelming sense of like guilt that I was headed home. And I think some of the worst parts was the fact that I was leaving some of these people that I had, gotten to know and worked with alongside, or even slept in the same dorm with, for about a week, and gotten to know some of these guys. Everybody was so awesome. Everybody was amazing, and just this kind of overwhelming sense of guilt. And of course, the trip home takes about 3 days. And I remember getting in pretty late. I want to say by the time I got home, when the wife come and picked me up from the airport, I want to say it was about 2 in the morning by the time I got home. So the kids are sleeping, and I was excited to see the kids and all. But in the morning, wake up early, about 7, and get the kids ready for school, and go there, see them off to the bus, first thing in the morning. And then I come back in the house, and I lay down on the couch and fall asleep. And I don't know if it was an hour or 2 hours, but I remember hearing one of those noises that you kind of, to a degree, had come accustomed to, and I'd heard them, I'm not sure how many times, entirely too many. But I remember sleeping on the couch and hearing a Shahid drone, and sprung up off the couch. It was so goddamn loud, and almost didn't realize that I was home. And it turned out it was the city out back. They were mowing, the easement around my house, and just had like kind of a little mini heart attack, and things like that kind of obviously passed. But I kind of realized it's like, wow, that month did kind of, it really did affect me. Really good friend of mine. We've been friends for, but might as well be as long as we've been alive. We don't talk as much as we should, but we still do. But he spent quite a bit of time in Iraq, in the military. And I'm not sure if he still kind of has this issue, but I remember years ago him talking about, basically he doesn't like the 4th of July anymore. Which it's understandable, right? You can imagine why, okay? My experiences are different, but what I can say is, 4th of July here this year was definitely a little bit of a different experience. It wasn't, I don't know how you'd say it, like I wasn't like jumpy or anything like that, but those nights where you're sitting in the house and you hear like the rumbles and the booms and stuff like that outside, and you see the lights flashing on the horizon, especially in the bigger city near us, when you drive to it, on the 4th of July, you know, the whole city is just lighting up. You see flashes all over the place and lighting up the sky at night, right? And all of these things kind of compounding, whether it be the sound or the lights and all of it just kind of like takes me back. And I almost just can't get it out of your head. And you know, it's not a fearful thing, nothing like that, but it keeps putting me in that like mind space and reminding me of all the stuff that I saw and everything, right? A lot of which I still to this day, there's quite a few things that I just haven't talked about yet. And even simple things like I guess the last example I could give would be this last weekend I went to a wedding, beautiful wedding, you know, and it was a good time and good people there, and it was something as simple as the dessert table having macaroons. I think the first time I've ever eaten a macaroon was in Ukraine. And, well, it maybe not the first time I've ever had a macaroon, right? But every coffee shop you went to, even the little coffee shack, the little stand at the hotel, they have macaroons, right? They're just everywhere. But it's something just as simple as that, seeing the macaroons on the table, just like instantly put me back there. And that's all I can think about. And there's just countless of these like little situations where I just can't, it's so hard to get my experiences out of my head. You know, it's an interesting thing to talk about, to sit here and discuss these things, and then and kind of bring up the final question that I want to go through that I've gotten is, are you going back? When are you going back? You know, that kind of question. In short, yes, I do plan to go back, and I hope this next time I can figure out, I think I kind of got things figured out as far as, you know, how to make myself more useful, and how to become part of something more while I'm there, now that I have experience there and I have people that I know and people that I could talk to, and obviously, you know, some of these people that will vouch for me, that have worked with me, and things of that nature. But yeah, I plan on going back, whether, you know, and I hope by the time I get back there, within the next 6 months or so, I truly hope that the conflict is over. Probably not, but even if it is, there's still going to be lots of work to be done, and I will still plan on going back there. You know, I hope the war's done, and because I would love to be able to be in that position and the conflict be over to where I could take my wife there and she could meet some of these people and see these places that I saw, and honestly kind of fall in love with the country that I did, being there for a month. It's a beautiful place. I absolutely loved it, and the people and everything. So yeah, I'm planning on going back. Link to Brave to Rebuild's fundraiser I'll put in the description. If you're willing and able, yeah, check that out. They need help. I think it pretty well wraps up the video. So if anybody has any questions, again, feel free. Reach out, however. And yeah, Slava Ukraini. Pretty well it. Later. God, this whole fucking video is just such a bitch to talk about. You know, it's